Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. I'm Joseph Davis with the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation. We're glad you're joining us today. We're living in a moment where the conversation around financial security is changing. More families, more communities, more leaders are asking the same question. How do we make sure the next generation has a real shot at prosperity? Not just access to opportunity, but the tools to actually build on it. The data tells us something important. Wealth in America is largely built through investing, through assets such as stocks and home ownership that grow in value over time. But for too long, that kind of long-term wealth building has been out of reach for too many families. According to data from the Congressional Budget Office, from 1989 to 2022, the share of wealth held by families in the bottom half of wealth distribution remained unchanged at 6%. Today, we're here to talk about a strategy that has the potential to change that, starting as early as birth. 530A investment accounts are a new tool designed to give every child a real stake in their financial future, a foundation to build on, a path toward long-term security and resiliency. Whether it's education, home ownership, or retirement, these accounts are built to grow alongside a child's life. So today, we'll dig into how these accounts work, where they fit within the broader landscape of early wealth building strategies, and what it takes to make sure every family, especially those who've historically been left out, can access and benefit from them. We'll also hear about the role that financial education, community partnerships, and cross-sector collaboration play in turning policy into real lasting impact. The question at the center of all of it is how? How do we make sure these accounts deliver on their promise? We brought together leaders from financial services, policy, and community organizations to dig into that question together. And we'll get it all done in the next hour. As a reminder, for all of you joining us virtually, be sure to use the Slido feature to add any questions you may have, and we'll try to get to them a little bit later. All right, let's get started. All right, I'm going to bring in my colleague, Jason Tishko. Jason, first of all, thank you for being here with us. I want to kind of add some context to it. So, context of the moment. What moment are we in? Thinking about financial security, thinking about long-term planning, thinking about the future for kids now. But what's that context? What moment are we in?
Yeah, Joe, thanks. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here. Per the context, what we need to keep in mind, at least the world I live in, dealing with all things education and workforce, is there's a lot of anxiety around how people are going to afford things like education and training. Not just concerns about the rising cost of higher education and how one is able to offset that cost, but also how is one going to continue to upskill and reskill throughout the course of their career. Now, stack on top of that concerns over return on investment for those types of things, and just other things in life, like will I be a homeowner? Will I be able to retire and feel economically secure? And what I think is going to be interesting is the types of innovations we're going to be talking about are really addressing many problems at once. But I think we need to understand kind of where the workforce is right now, and we need to do things to begin to not only tackle that anxiety, but to give people real, tangible tools so they can take ownership and action over addressing some of these economic security issues.
Now, I know we'll get into the weeds a little bit later with our other guests, but I guess starting with the basics. What is a 530A account?
Yes, just the basics. I'll defer to the real experts, but think of it like a modified individual retirement account, but for youth. So if you're under 18, you're able to open one of these accounts and receive that investment. And it's really intended to be there to build wealth, but for three important purposes. Build wealth for education, for home ownership, or for retirement. And in terms of who can receive those who can provide contributions, there's of course the parents and guardians who are helping open the account that's owned by the youth, and then it transfers over after the age of 18. But in addition to the parents and guardians, now we have an opportunity for philanthropy, for government, and even employers to make contributions to them.
Got it. So thinking about what you just said in the broad context of things, I guess for the U.S. Chamber Foundation, why does it matter? Why does this topic matter at all?
Yeah, on the one hand, these accounts are going to go live very soon after the holiday. So this is a very timely conversation, and we want to make sure as many Americans out there have the facts on what these are and how to use them and to see if they apply to them and their family. And why we care about the Chamber Foundation is here at the foundation, we host an initiative called Talent Finance. And over the span of many years now, we've been exploring a wide variety of finance innovations and instruments. We've explored how to kind of approach them in a more public-private way, where not everything is like a federal grant or loan, but there's kind of mixed financing options where employers can play a meaningful role. Whether it's having these conversations around outcomes-based financing methods or looking at things like 529 plans, or even what the Chamber Foundation has itself worked on, skill savings accounts, which is now a bill in the Congress that we're trying to get across the finish line. These are all instruments that are really trying to help give people, employers, communities tools of action so they could kind of manage the affordability of things like education and training, but trying to come with creative ways for everyone to contribute and have skin in the game, to share in the value and the risk. And we think Trump accounts are very exciting because it brings another tool to the toolbox. One that's a bit of a Swiss Army knife because it can do many things. If you're talking about 529 plans, they're very focused, very intentional about trying to offset the cost of higher education. But with the Trump account, it can serve that purpose. It can help you purchase your first home. It could help you with retirement. It could do many different things at once. So we just think it's another exciting tool to add to this large toolbox because the workforce needs every tool it could get its hands on if we're going to manage the dynamism of this economy going forward.
Got it. Let's bring out the crystal ball. Let's look ahead. What would success look like for an investment tool like this in your eyes?
Yep. Let me put a little twist on that. Like, how will we judge them? And I think what the working hypothesis is by doing this, you're going to see wealth build. You're going to see the wealth that is building offset the cost of education. You're going to, which could mean more access to higher education. You're going to see potentially more home ownership. Will that happen? And you're going to see people entering retirement with greater levels of economic security. So if that is what it's intended to do, we need to make sure these were fit for purpose and we're judging them based upon their intentions. So I think those are the things we need to monitor for. Did it move the needle on these three very important areas? More people getting more affordable education, more people purchasing homes and building wealth that way, or more people entering retirement with greater financial security.
That's great. Well, Jason, you got us started. So I appreciate you being here, getting us going. In just a minute, we'll switch gears a little bit, talk about structure and talk about the intricacies of these accounts. Back, and I am joined now by Nicole Swift, Chantel Sheeks with the U.S. Chamber. I want to dive in and talk a little bit about the why. So I want to start off with that. So why were these accounts created, first of all, and then I guess what were they designed? What challenge were they designed to solve?
So Trump accounts were designed to help families build savings for their children by investing small accounts or small amounts as early as birth, as you mentioned. They're also provided in a broad way. Every child under the age of 18 can have one of these accounts. So it's not just for affluent families, it's for everybody. And the growth of investing over time can give these children a stronger financial footing when they become adults. And then finally, I think what's really important too to mention is that the Trump accounts also provide a great opportunity to expand financial literacy education.
Got it.
And I think even expanding on that a little bit more, it's not just getting the children in, but it's getting the families into the financial system. And the good thing about this, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, is that there are a lot of other benefits other than just the monetary benefit, but it's the inclusion in a system that a lot of people have been left out on that will have benefits down the road, both for wealth and for health.
Got it. So I guess thinking about the increasing wealth gap that we have in this country, why does starting early matter so much when we think about investing and investing for the future? Why does starting early matter so much?
I think one of the biggest benefits to starting early is the power of compound interest. So investing these amounts early on grows exponentially over time when you're investing in the capital markets. So, and the longer that it can stay invested, the more that it can grow. And that's really important. It's never too early or too late to start investing. And it also, again, is a really great opportunity for financial literacy education. So for example, the SIFMA Foundation has just launched FamilyInvestQuest.org, which allows families to see how investing over time changes their outcomes, what their choices are doing. So if you're investing in the capital markets versus a savings account, or in continuing to add contributions versus not, it can show you how this changes over time, and really highlights the power of compound interest.
Got it.
Well, I think another thing to add to this is starting early. Again, I'm focusing a lot more on the broader picture of the family overall. And some people think, oh, the Trump accounts, this is new. It's not a new idea. On the federal level, it's a new idea, which is great to have it across the board. But the states have done experiments with this, and other countries have done experiments with this. And they're finding, even if for the accounts that can't be touched, which is a good thing, can't be touched until they're 18, the parents feel more financial security and are emotionally stronger and more available because they know that these accounts are available. So I think it's great that we're building off the experiments that the states have done to add more what that does for the family overall emotionally. And also some of the other studies showed that by having this early on, that the children who may not have been thinking about other educational or vocational opportunities start to think about different opportunities along the way that, say you got it to them when they're 20 or 21, that's a little bit too late, but knowing that they're getting that education, not just financial, will get them thinking about different career paths.
That's great. I think this may be a question we'd probably have from our virtual folks, but so how much money can one contribute to one of these accounts? And does it matter where it comes from? I know an employer can contribute, family member, community organization, like how much can be contributed into one of these accounts?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, and it does matter where it comes from.
Okay.
Family members, friends, employers can contribute, well, family members and friends can contribute up to $5,000 per year. $5,000 is the max limit.
Okay.
Of that $5,000, $2,500 can be contributed by employers matching or contributing on your dependent's behalf.
Okay.
If it's coming from a state or a philanthropist, a charitable contribution, those are unlimited. So those don't count towards that $5,000.
And then it does get a little bit trickier. And one of the things that at the Chamber we're working on quite a bit, and Nicole and I work very closely together on this, is if it's coming from your employer, that $2,500 is split between the employee and the employer. So we're waiting for the guidance, and God bless Treasury and the IRS. They have been working. We want to thank them. They've been working very hard. But down the line, it's going to be a little bit trickier. And what's going to be a little bit trickier when the child turns 18 is who contributed that money, how it was contributed will depend on how it's taxed later on. So that's very important.
Yeah,
Got it.
that's a great point.
Thinking about the impact now, so, and I guess I'm looking long term, what does even a modest amount of money put into an account like this look like in the future for a child? What's the potential?
That's a good question too. And lots of people are kind of looking at this and and modeling, but the White House's Council of Economic Advisors put out a report that estimated that the growth in a Trump account for just the $1,000 government pilot money would grow to maybe about 6,000 when the child is 18 years old. So over those first 18 years, it could grow to as much as 6,000 with no additional contributions, and assuming about 10% return each year. If additional contributions are put into the account, that number grows even higher. So if you were putting in half of the maximum, so if you're putting in $2,500 a year, that number could be as high as $150,000. If you're putting in the max, $5,000, it could grow to over $300,000. And that's not taking into consideration any philanthropic contributions. And then once a child becomes an adult, after the child is converts it to a traditional individual retirement account, they can continue to add more money to that account. So it really has the potential to grow over time.
Got it. So we're coming up on the launch, so July 4th, of course. Considering that, what should financial professionals and more importantly, maybe families be considering as this gets ready to be rolled out?
So families should be on the lookout for communications from Treasury about activating their accounts if they haven't gotten that already, if they've already filled out the forms to open these accounts.
Okay.
So Treasury's issuing those in waves. They should all be issued before the July 4th date. And you want to get your account activated because that's how you receive contributions, especially the government pilot contribution. Financial professionals should be on the lookout for lots of Treasury guidance. So we've had some guidance, but they're getting ready to issue a lot more between now and the launch date, which is a short period of time. But we're looking for guidance on various areas, such as employer contributions that Chantel mentioned, eligible investments, gift tax implications, things like that. And so that's going to be really important for financial institutions that are getting lots of questions from their clients or evaluating how to navigate once the accounts can be transferred to providers of your choice. So right now they're all at Treasury, they have to be opened there, but later on they may be able to be rolled over to a different provider. And so financial institutions need that information to evaluate that process.
Chantel, any final thoughts?
Two things that are really important is we want to make sure, working with our community partners and with the financial service professionals, that those individuals who may not have filled out a tax form because they weren't required to, because they wouldn't have filled out Form 4547, so they may not have done anything yet. So we really need to work with our community partners to get the word out to everyone to make sure, because if you don't fill the initial form out, you don't get the activation letter.
Got it.
So making sure to get the word out, even if you think that you're like, oh, well, my kid's not going to get the 1,000, well, your kid might get something from a philanthropical organization. So making sure that that is filled out and complete. And another one that I think is really, really important is, I don't want to be Debbie Downer here, but I'm going to, is watching out for scams.
Okay.
And the Department of the Treasury put out a really good press release saying the only information you will get, don't fall for it. If you get an email, it will come from noreply@trumpaccounts.treasury.gov. So if it's anything different than that, do not answer it, do not reply to it, because we want to make sure that these are going to the right people. And then the final one, and I think this is maybe in the future, but once you get these open, it's really important for financial professionals to see which account is right for you. There's so many different accounts out there, 401k, 401b, Trump account, 125. Everybody in the audience is like, she's just saying a lot of numbers. But your financial advisor will be there and be able to help you decide, where does that first dollar go better? Should it go to the 401k? Should it go to the Trump account? Or should it go to both?
Got it. Thank you both so much. I know I'll see you again soon, but thanks so much for getting us going here. We're going to, just a second, talk a little bit about the connection between education and early investment. we are back. I'm joined this time by David Clooney. First of all, thank you for taking some time to do this. I always like to start out with the why. So I kind of want to hear from you and your organization. Why is Edward Jones interested in this topic?
Well, thank you to the U.S. Chamber Foundation for having us and for hosting this conversation that is timely as the launch is upon us. So at Edward Jones, we are a 104-year-old wealth management firm, now financial planning firm as well. And for the entirety of our history, we've been working with our clients we work with clients across the income and wealth spectrum, but the vast majority of our 9 million clients represent the long-term investor, middle-class long-term investors who need advice, guidance, and tools to not only make ends meet, but to make plans for the future, to make sure that they are prepared for retirement and have all the information and resources necessary to make smart decisions now, in the medium-term future, as well as the long-term future. So for us, this is a huge opportunity for education that is tied to a real life moment and a financial moment for folks, having a new opportunity to make an investment. And long-term investments for us, as we put out in a release earlier this year, is how we've always been advising our clients. So this is yet another tool in the toolbox, but one that we hope will be an opportunity to really broaden the conversation about all the things people should be thinking about now to be prepared for the future.
You gave me the perfect segue because you talked about the toolbox. Jason mentioned at the beginning this being a tool in a broader toolkit. What makes these accounts different? Obviously, as Jason mentioned, we have 529 college plans, we have baby bonds, we have others. Right. What makes this different now that we're looking at a new tool? What should folks be thinking about in terms of like how this differs?
Right, so we want people to look at this as yet another point of entry to early wealth investing, and as some of the speakers earlier said, folks need to be thinking about all of the options in front of them and what they mean. This one in particular, we've never had the federal government make a commitment and provide resources the way they are. So both providing the opportunity for folks to open a new account who may not have any access to the financial system whatsoever, but very importantly, providing $1,000 of a benefit to those who are eligible, born between 2025 and 2028, is a huge opportunity. And you think about $1,000 could be life-changing and game-changing for some families, not only now, but particularly the time value of that money, the compound interest on that money over time, especially if invested properly. So we see this as an opportunity to have a broader conversation about what it means to get more and more people access, particularly those who have been disconnected from the financial system, access to these kind of tools. And then once they do, what they should be thinking about, how they make moves with this investment, whether it's to a 529 in the future, to an individual retirement account, or what have you.
Got it. Can you talk a little bit about the ability for employers to invest for employees as children? What should we know about that?
So one thing that's been unprecedented in this environment around 530A accounts is just the unprecedented amount of engagement you've seen from the private sector making commitments to make follow-on contributions to their employees' accounts, or to their employees' accounts if they open and are eligible for Trump accounts. Edward Jones made an announcement earlier in the year that we were looking to make sure that this was a benefit to not only our employees, but our clients, our colleagues, and communities. But really, it's an opportunity for employers to show that they value the ability for their employees to build wealth over time and to come on top of what the government is providing in the way of either the ability to open the account and or the ability to fund those accounts with $1,000 of seed capital that can grow over time. So this is, I think, an awesome opportunity for all of us, and not only those in the financial services space, but private sector companies across the board to really quite literally invest in their colleagues and their employees, and make sure that they and their families have as many options as possible to be secure in the future.
Mm-hmm. Now, I guess having an account is one thing, and then actually using it well is another. What should we know about how families can conduct that education to actually use these accounts well?
Yeah, this part is so important. At Edward Jones, a lot of our focus recently, especially, I lead community impact and I'm the president of the Edward Jones Foundation. So much of what we are doing is connecting with people at life moments where they are laser focused on making financial decisions. And that can be graduation, getting married, starting a business, tax time. And this is a unique life moment for folks to open an account perhaps for the first time and have $1,000 in hand and then have a real opportunity to make decisions around it. So the education component of it is really important. And what we need to do is make sure that folks know exactly what they need to do to get access to an account, to open an account, and then the advice and guidance necessary to make smart decisions with it. Unfortunately, a lot of folks do not have the information necessary to even know how to open a Trump account. So we're doing things, I talked about us making information available for our clients, colleagues, and communities. On our website at edwardjones.com, we have information about what do you need to know about Trump accounts? How do you get access to 530A accounts? And then once you do, we even have a side-by-side of comparison of, the advantages of a 530A account relative to or versus a 529 account as people think about their options. But really, it is how can all of us across the public, private, and nonprofit sectors get to as many people as possible to make sure they have the information they need to take advantage of this asset that is being provided by the government. And then all of us come together. Edward Jones can't do it alone. The private sector can't do it alone. All of us come together to make sure that we are getting to as many people as possible to give them the information, tools, resources, advice, and guidance necessary to make smart decisions going forward.
I think this question kind of goes on the heel of what you just said. A lot of the folks that would benefit most from an account like this are underbanked, unbanked. What are you doing at Edward Jones to kind of ensure a lot of those families and communities don't get left out of something like this?
So at Edward Jones, we talk a lot about our purpose. Our purpose is to partner for positive impact, to improve the lives of our clients and colleagues, and together better our communities and society. It's really important. The partner component of that is really important. We don't have access to all the people we need to have access to. So we work with community partners like Inclusive, which is it is a network of community development credit unions, as well as they work with community development financial institutions, CDFIs, to provide both technical assistance and access to folks who have been unbanked, underbanked, maybe have never had a bank account, but also those who get into the financial system, make sure that they are getting the information, the advice, and guidance necessary to get on a path to stability. So for us, we're working with partners like that who have access to folks who have not been banked or been unbanked or underbanked. And I think about the pandemic as a recent example of how hard it can be to get some of these really well-intentioned government benefits to the people who, you're thinking about a tax credit for folks who have never filed taxes, or getting a government benefit in the way of a stimulus check to folks who have never had a bank account, or PPP loans to folks who either work with financial institutions that are not hardwired into the system to be able to get on those rails and get access to PPPs, or don't have a bank account at all. So I think all of those are instructive about how we need to work together. And one thing I saw that worked well during the pandemic, and I think we need to go back to that now, is the public, private, and nonprofit sectors working together to figure out how we can all lock arms and get access to as many people as possible so that they can take advantage of these benefits.
Awesome. David, thanks so much for doing this. I know I'll see you again soon.
Sure.
Here today. In just a minute, we're going to talk about the value of investing early and why that's so important. We'll be right back. And we are back. I'm joined now by Jason Ewes in person and Timothy Flocka virtually. I want to jump in and kind of start thinking about the topic of like early investment, why it matters. So research shows that kids who grow up with a savings account, they develop different habits as an adult. What does the data, what does the information research show why that's so important?
Yeah, well, first, thanks for having me. Excited for this discussion today. I think, Chantel said it well. We now have federal early wealth building policy. on the books with a federal deposit. That's huge. That's a huge accomplishment. The field does have a long history, including research going back decades. There are programs in California, Pennsylvania, New York City, and a very extensive study called SEED-OK in Oklahoma that tested those effects. And there was real evidence that even just having an account with $1,000 in it, there's other research from Professor Willie Elliott, even just a little bit of money in an account oriented towards the future helps the kids orient towards college and career advancement, and it helps the families as well. Mothers in those studies, health measures improved, future orientation improved, and so this is, it's tremendous to have federal policy on the books, and it's good to know that at a start, the evidence is there that if kids have the accounts, they will benefit from it.
Tim, your thoughts?
I think Jason said it well, and Joe, thank you for the opportunity, and to the Chamber for hosting the event. At Commonwealth, our focus is families living on low and moderate incomes, paycheck to paycheck, and what we know from 25 years of doing that work is that kind of pressure of worrying about each paycheck really forces families to live in the financial present, in the here and now. The attention, the focus, the problem solving is all about getting through the month, sometimes even getting through the week. And naturally, kids pick up on that. They sense that focus on the here and now. So having the presence, as Jason already said, of a long-term wealth building account from an early age stands in contrast to that chronic focus on the financial present. It just gives you an opportunity to think further into the future. So that's really a powerful opportunity, and we want to make sure that that kids have that chance not only to see the intense focus on getting through the here and now, but also that somebody is thinking about the longer term, the future that they could have, and the importance of planning for wealth into the future. And Jason already summarized, there's just so much evidence that this has an effect on kids' hopes, on their aspirations, on what they think is possible. And in that sense is an incredibly smart investment for us as a people, as a society, to be able to have more of our kids foresee a future for themselves, and specifically a financial future.
And Tim, I'll come right back to you. I just thought about one of the challenges. So one of the challenges will be getting as many children as possible to open one of these accounts. So I want to get insights from both of you. Tim, I'll start with you. How can we address that challenge? What do we need to do to make sure as many children as possible can open one of these accounts?
Yeah, I love that question, and I appreciate that some of the prior speakers have already touched on this. We've actually had a chance to do some focus groups with families that are living on modest incomes, and there's some directional findings I'll share. The first one is that $1,000 of seed funds, and even the more modest seeds that are available to more children, they really matter. They really get the attention of parents. Unfortunately, a lot of parents don't understand that if they are not eligible, or their children are not eligible for the $1,000, that there are these other sources of contributions. So we have to keep getting that message out. But that is a real differentiator from some prior efforts, really to support families. The second thing is that there are still big information gaps. We hear over and over again, how exactly does this work? What does this mean for me? Which of my kids are eligible? How do these accounts fit with other accounts? Who's really behind this? What's the catch? And so it's one thing to have heard about the opportunity, to be aware, but it's another thing to understand it to the point where you are ready to take action. So we just have to keep a sustained kind of intentional effort, and in particular, again, as other guests have said, to reach those households who are not necessarily going to have a financial advisor or somebody else to point it out to them. Mm-hmm. The third thing we learned from focus groups is that the branding with the president's name can be very polarizing. Interestingly, even among folks who identify as politically conservative. So we believe we need a variety of mainstream respected institutions to spread the word about these accounts so that families hear about it multiple times from multiple sources and understand that this is a program authorized by Congress, funded by taxpayer funds, and written into federal law. The good news is we actually have a really strong history of major institutions employers, industry, state and local government, national nonprofits coming together around social marketing campaigns, going back to buying US savings bonds in the Second World War, to wearing our seatbelts in the 20th century, to ending drunk driving. And we have seen, and actually Jason and I had a chance to work together on some of this through the pandemic, we have seen multiple stakeholders step up and work together. And what's critical is we need to make it easy for a wide variety of these stakeholders to play their part, offering them ready-to-go tools that make it simpler. And we need to make it comfortable and safe for them to do that. And what's central to that is that this has to be part of a broad public campaign, clearly in the public interest, or in this case, in our kids' interests. And I think there's the raw material to do that for this opportunity.
Jason, anything you'd add?
Yeah, I used to work for Tim at Commonwealth, so that was, yes, I was thinking of the same moment there. So I think Tim is exactly right. I think in an opt-in environment, an environment where families have to open the accounts, the only way to get low and moderate income households, those who would most benefit from this policy, right, those without family wealth, is through a coordinated campaign. A push among financial services, employers, state and local governments are an important component to communicate with their residents. Nonprofits, a big part of that as well, trusted partner, to drive uptake of this account, particularly for kids eligible for the $1,000 and kids eligible for any philanthropic gifts. The thing that I'll note is that, I cited research. One of the major findings of that research is that the best way to get kids enrolled is to automatically enroll them. From the retirement industry, we know that this is an incredibly effective way to move from 30–40% uptake at a company to 90 plus. And there's an example in Maine that has a statewide early wealth building program with a $500 seed deposit for every child in Maine, the Alphonse Scholar program. They did opt-in for several years in the late 2000s up to 2013. They had about 40% uptake. They then said the goal of this program should really be to get kids the accounts, particularly those who aren't opening them, low and moderate income households. They switched to automatic enrollment, and now they claim 100%. And I think enrollment. So I think it is both in the short term, catalyzing a movement among the places that reach people and that people trust, and in the long term, pushing for automatic enrollment. The last thing I'll say is that the recent announcement for the Fostering the Future accounts that the First Lady announced last week for foster children, there will be an opportunity for states to open accounts on behalf of those kids who are involved with the state. So they use the phrase automatic enrollment. They, a lot of steps, like most of this policy, a lot of the steps are to be determined, and we anxiously await guidance, or eagerly await guidance, but they are setting a precedent for state-facilitated automatic enrollment, again, to get these accounts open because there's so much opportunity at stake with them.
I'll stick with you. So thinking past the seed money from the government, contributions can be made from an employer, nonprofit, community organization, but what does that actually look like in practice, like having organizations or these entities making those contributions? What does that look like?
We'll see what the next Treasury guidance says, but I think overall, the previous panels articulated it well. I think one of the great features of these accounts, there's a couple. One is, we said early investment, and that they are investment accounts, right? Giving people exposure to capital markets and the stock market. If you look at any wealth gap in the country, by income, by anything else, you'll notice that lower income people do not own stocks, and this is a way to give them exposure in a relatively low risk way, or at least a straightforward, non-confusing way for them. So that's one good feature. The other is there are multiple streams that can come into the account, right? And that is from the family itself, the $5,000. An employer can contribute $2,500 if an employee is lucky enough to work at an employer that offers that benefit. Okay. Philanthropy can give unlimited amounts, to their checkbooks and their willingness, to certain geographic areas in the country with 5,000 or more Trump account holders. They can also give in ways similar to the Dell across the country or within states. And so the feature really is to get as much money in the accounts as possible to really build wealth for the households, particularly those that need it most.
Got it. Tim, anything you'd add?
I think we need to be really creative. I had one really inspiring conversation with a very large online retailer, and they noted as an example that they have a practice today of sending a fairly nice gift basket when a worker becomes a parent for the first time. And this executive was saying, maybe those dollars would be more valuable put into an account. So it's just one micro example. I think what we will find if we take up this challenge is that there are places where we can do the equivalent of that, right? Redirect funds into something that may be more meaningful. And the second thing I'd say, I'm maybe repeating what Jason has just said, but we really need to be serious about targeting whatever funds are available to the places and the communities and the households who most need them and are not going to have the same ability to contribute on their own. Whatever resources we have, they're not going to be enough, or they're going to be precious, and we need them to go where they're really going to make the biggest difference.
Got it. So final question, I guess, thinking long term, again, of course. I want to think about what will be relevant for different stages for individuals. So thinking about a lifelong account, what does that look like, say, for a young child, then a young adult, maybe getting into their 20s, and then a retiree, for instance? What does that life cycle look like? What's the potential of what this could look like, thinking about those stages of life?
Tim, you want to go first?
Sure. I mean, there's so much, right? But honestly, the first things that come to mind, just good design, easy to navigate, straightforward. I think we'll do fine on that. The thing that I think we might miss that I'll take a moment to highlight is we don't just want families or kids to end up with accounts with dollars in them. We want families, and especially kids, who feel agency and ownership over those accounts and feel that they can see what they can do for them. We've done a ton of work trying to open up access to investing for people living on modest incomes who said they'd really like to. And one of the key findings is that even if they have a little money set aside, even if they have access to the right tool or fintech, they still say, but I'm just not sure this is something that's for me. And we've called that investor identity. And this is an incredible opportunity, as you pointed out, Joe, over a whole childhood, to consistently build up the message that, yes, this is for you. You can be a wealth builder. You can be an investor. And that looks like leveraging the power of those seed funds. It looks like making knowledge available in a way that is attractive and relevant and personalized. And finally, giving them control of the accounts, because in our own research, that is the most critical factor, is a little bit of seed funds. And in as little as 6 months of actively owning an account, we see signs that that investor identity forms and people have an entirely different relationship to that money. So we all get the highest possible return on this investment, a generation of people who feel they are, in fact, literally invested in wealth building.
Got it. Jason, any final thoughts?
Well said, Tim. I'll cite, he said what I was going to say. I'll cite a specific example. So we recently published a study with the Georgia Resilience and Opportunity Fund that's doing a baby bonds program. We did a roundtable of young people, 18 to 25, all in Atlanta. Those people are obviously of the age when you would be able to use a Trump account for those who are a little further down the road. And they also will be able to potentially, if they have kids, open one, claim $1,000, give to their uncles, brothers, and sisters. I think that the one thing I would underline in Tim's remarks is the importance of this opportunity for showing the power of capital markets to a generation, particularly a generation that has been left out. And so I think the design, yes, as Tim said, it's got to be user-friendly, easy to access, et but it's got to show the ups and downs, right? It's not just all, it's been for a little while, but it's not all the ups and downs of investing, and really show people what matters, because the key finding from that study was that young people had picked individual stocks in certain ways. They were very distrustful of investing. They had lost money, their mother had lost money, they had lived through the Great Recession, et and so they wanted to see something that would show them how to do it, give them hope, and a pathway to longer-term wealth and down the road.
Got it. Well, Jason, Tim, thank you both so much.
Thank you.
In just a second, we're going to bring everybody out, and we're going to try to answer a few of your questions. Stick with us. And we are back with everyone. I want to get to a few questions from our virtual folks, but I want to kick it off with one. We've talked a lot about the potential, but what's one thing, I guess, and I'll open this up to the group, what's one thing that you all are thinking about in terms of implementation, one of the challenges that's kind of keeping you up and having you, doing a little bit more thinking about what the possibilities are? We'll start at the end.
I said earlier, here at the Chamber, we do work with both financial institutions. Kind of nice thing about working at the Chamber is we represent pretty much everybody. And we do a lot of work with Edward Jones. We do a lot of work with our employers. And our employers have so many questions. It's, in a simple way, it's just about moving money. But now, how do we move this money? And there are so many questions out there, and I know employers want to do it. I know employees are interested in contributing because they could do it on a pre-tax basis. But we want to make sure we get it right, and we want to, because this is really important. And every day I'm just waiting for that guidance and waiting for that guidance, because until we get that guidance from the IRS and Treasury, they really can't go forward.
Anyone else, anything that's kind of bringing a little anxiety about implementation for anyone?
I'll just add, I think what is really important is what was spoken to earlier, which is having the right messengers and the right validators deliver the information to different places that will hear it differently, coming from different folks, and that we have to make it easy for people. We have to make it accessible, whether you're talking about an employer or a family who has never had a relationship with a financial advisor or a financial institution. So we need to be locked arms, and a big thank you and shout out to the U.S. Chamber as well as SIFMA for doing a lot of work to make sure folks have the best information and to continue to bring us together. So I encourage you to continue doing that. We will do our part at Edward Jones, but we all have a role to play to make sure that information gets to the right places.
And I do think it's important because study after study comes out, especially in the employee benefit space, is people really do trust their employers. And that if employers are providing this information and letting people know, they will look at it and they will read it. And I think it's a way to get especially lower wage individuals involved.
You actually spoke a little bit to one of the first questions we had. What's the best way to share this information with employees thinking about employers?
Well, I'd say one thing that's coming up is open enrollment. If you have a calendar year plan, open enrollment, we all have to do that, where you're picking your health plan for the year. You should be reviewing your retirement account. But I think for the employers who may be offering it, it's a good time to put that in your open enrollment material, in newsletters, any type of communication going out.
Okay, one more. Someone asked, what is the $1,000 pilot and who can participate in that pilot?
I can take that one. So the $1,000 pilot contribution is the government seed money. So it's coming directly from the government. It goes to accounts that are open for children that were born during this administration. So 2025 to 2028, right? So just for now, that's the pilot program for those kids that were born in this administration.
Got it. One thing, I think we touched on it, but I wanted to make sure we got it in. So if folks want to know where to go to get more information, what are some good places to start just to get some of the basic information, some of the added information they'll need? Where can they go?
Treasury. I mean, honestly,
TrumpAccounts.gov.
TrumpAccounts.gov, the Treasury and IRS. It's one of those things people don't think about, because how many people want to be like, I really want to talk to the IRS. But on this particular topic, I think they've done a bang-up job, and that is the first place I would go.
And I would say for those who have the luxury and opportunity to speak to a financial advisor, speak to one, not only at Edward Jones, anywhere you can go, but a lot of folks are looking for guidance, us included, so that is the best place to go, to the source, to Treasury.
Got it. We touched on this a little bit earlier, but I wanted to make sure I got it in. How is this account different than the 529 plan? Like, how would a family decide between the two if they were?
I would go ahead and what we talked about before is a 529 plan is for education. So that is distinctly set aside for education. This is a retirement account. This is an individual retirement account that cannot be touched until age 18. And at that time, you could use it for certain things, but a penalty would apply to it just because it automatically becomes a regular IRA. So I do think, I believe Edward Jones has this, I know a lot of the other service providers, and I think SIFMA also has a really great comparison of what is better for you, how these work when they do that. So remembering this is actually a retirement account. 529 is for education. 529 can be rolled over into an IRA account, and all of a sudden everybody's really confused. So that's why I say go to the Edward Jones where they end SIFMA that has that really good comparison of what is what and what is the purpose of each one.
Thank you for giving my plug for me.
And SIFMA.
Yeah, thank you.
And I want to get this question in for the parents that are watching right now or who will see this. Nicole, I'll start with you. What's one message you would give to those parents right now thinking about this? What should I do? Like, where do I start? What would be your one message?
I mean, I think the obvious is if you haven't already, open an account. Go to trumpaccounts.gov, fill out form 4547, open an account for the kids that you have, because even if you're not eligible for the government pilot contribution or you're not planning on putting in any additional monies yourself, other people can put money in there for your kids. And so it helps to just have it open.
As a yes and to Nicole's point, have a conversation, ask questions early and often. One of the things we talk a lot about at Edward Jones is normalizing the conversation around money, making it not only okay, but encouraged to ask questions. Folks often think they should know more than they know. There's a lot of kind of hunger and appetite for more information in this space, so the more questions you ask, I think the more you'll get directed to good information.
And just quickly to build on that, yeah, I think open an account, get the money. There's the federal government money, and there's other philanthropic money that's likely to come in. There's also, the $5,000 per year after-tax cap. That's not like family and friends. That's anybody. So if this account really takes off, like you could see ways where there are really different flows, based on school and so on. So we just said open the account. And the other thing I'd say, if you don't open the account this year and claim the $1,000, that's okay. You can open it any time before your kid is 18 and get that $1,000 from the federal government. The earlier the better, compound interest, rates of return, et cetera. But if you didn't miss anything yet, particularly if your kid is eligible for the $1,000.
And I would say then, after you open the account, then go to that next step of saying what else is out there. And I mentioned it earlier when Nicole and I were on there, but making sure you're utilizing the correct account at the correct time to maximize. If your employer is not giving a match to the Trump account, but they're giving a match to the 401k account, you may want to think about putting that money first into the 401k account. If they're not doing a match to the 401k account, but they're doing a match to the Trump account, don't leave money on the table. So looking at everything that's available to you and making that first dollar really count.
Got it. Okay, I'll open this one up to the table again. Hopefully, I'm asking this correctly. Thinking about auto enrollment, is that one way to have that happen? Is that when parents get the Social Security number for their children? Is that kind of the point where that happens, thinking about auto enrollment?
So the current policy is opt-in, so it's not automatic enrollment. There are a number of ways that the federal government could do automatic enrollment. Like the UK actually had a program where they had a backstop where when the kids, if an account was unclaimed by a certain age, the government would just open on behalf of the family. So there are a number of ways the federal government could do that, at least in the short term. That is not what they're doing. You could also have states for their residents potentially open unclaimed accounts. And for the Fostering Our Future accounts from the First Lady, that's what they propose doing, is that state agencies can open accounts on behalf of children in the foster care system. So there is at least a part of that on the books, and there'll be important lessons from that implementation that could potentially be applied by other states and eventually the federal government as well.
Got it. Okay, we're going to start at the end again. Last question. This is the big one.
I always at the end.
I asked Jason at the beginning, so I kind of want you guys to expand on a little bit too. So what does success look like? So if we fast forward 5 years from now and we call it a success, what does that look like?
Well, I have been in the employee benefit field longer than I'd like to admit. And one thing we have a problem with is keeping people engaged, because we do all these great things to encourage people. We do automatic enrollment, auto escalation, auto, and then people don't stay engaged because we've automated everything. So success for 5 years is that people are still engaged, is that people are still contributing, that people are still interested in this, and that we're still talking about it, and that wasn't just a flavor of the day. So not just keeping the individuals engaged, but also keeping policymakers engaged, finding ways to make these better.
All right, Jason?
No, I think, well said. I think building a national movement so all the relevant stakeholders are all in on early wealth building. And for us, that low and moderate income households own these accounts, right, and are benefiting from them and starting to build wealth across them.
Yeah, I would say, to your point, do not leave money on the table. Success to me looks like as many people as possible taking advantage of the benefits that are available to them, and more importantly, this being a moment where we really open access to more and more people to have any kind of early investment account, for that to look like a 529, a 530, an individual retirement account, 401k, 403b, baby bonds, et cetera, and even that states and local governments, nonprofit organizations, and private organizations are looking at how can we invest in this space to make access available to even more people.
Nicole, you get the final say.
Okay. I think that this is such an important opportunity to seize on improving financial literacy. We're going to have a whole generation of kids that are going to have these accounts, theoretically, hopefully. And it's a great place for us to really improve financial literacy, starting with the kids. And we've found too that when the kids are receiving this financial literacy and engaging in these programs, they're bringing that information back to their parents. So even if their parents are new to the system, they can bring that information back and really expand it to their whole family.
That's great. Well, thank you all. I mean, we have covered some ground today, from how these accounts work to how we get them into the hands of every eligible child, to what it really takes to turn a financial product into a wealth building tool. If there's one thing I hope you take away today, it's that this is a real opportunity, and the moment to act on it is here. On July 4th, 538 investment accounts go live. So for the first time in American history, every child with a Social Security number will be eligible for a lifetime investment account. And according to Commonwealth, for approximately 5.8 million children from families living on low to moderate incomes, the accounts represent a powerful opportunity to begin life with a wealth creation seed fund. That's not a small thing. That's a big deal. But accounts alone don't build wealth. Action does. So here's your call to action. If you have a child in your life who's eligible, claim that account. Learn how, then share what you know with others. And if you're an organization, business, or community leader, think about how you can help expand this work. Every child deserves a shot at the American dream. And today we have a real tool to help make that possible. So I want to thank our panelists again. I want to thank Edward Jones for their partnership on this event, and to all of you for being here today. And as always, you can follow our work by visiting uschamberfoundation.org. Thanks, and we'll see you again soon.